Hochul's plans for camps may be in the works again.
New York State is still fighting for the right to set up camps.
It allows the Department of Health to pick and choose which New Yorkers they can lock up or lock down without any proof that you're sick. There's no time limit. There's no location restrictions. They can remove you from your house with the force of police. You would have no say.
And if we don't stop them here, this goes on to other things. And it goes to other states.
This is happening now, and let me know, is it time to get out of New York? Take a look. The New York Appellate Division has ruled in favor of Governor Kathy Hochul in a landmark case for government overreach. Rule 213, isolated quarantine and procedures will give the state of New York the ability to come into your home and take you away to quarantine you without any notice and for any virus or infection they deem necessary. You won't have any option to fight it. No court date. Nothing. The rule has no age limit, and they can keep you for as long as they'd like. The rule also allows them to treat you as they see fit, including using methods that are still in testing. This is one of the biggest abuses of power that this country has ever seen. This is only the beginning. How long until this is nationwide or even global? As I mentioned, let me know your thoughts. This has come out in the past week, and take a look at the headlines coming out over the past week. Appeal planned after New York Supreme Court reinstates camp regulations. Court reverses previous ruling on New York State isolation and quarantine procedures. Quarantine isolation law reinstated after Appellate Division decision. And New York just made it legal to quarantine and isolate citizens indefinitely. Now, as I mentioned, I'm going to be sharing with you the latest on these articles so that way you can see exactly what's taking place. And yes, this is taking effect in the past week. The state of New York now has the ability to isolate, quarantine, and to do so however they see fit and for whatever duration. This, they said, is going to be appealed again as this continues on. And in addition to that, take a look at what just came out right after this. Hochul announces new step to counteract rising online hate speech, as they're also saying they need to control the speech and the narrative to make sure that people are getting what they are saying is the truth. I'm going to share with you the latest. Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. Now, before we dive in, do me a quick favor. If you appreciate the updates, even though they might not necessarily be what you want to hear, but you appreciate getting the latest news, smash the like button for me. Just takes a second. And if you want to stay up to date, it's totally free. Why not? Hit the subscribe button, turn on that notification bell. I'll let you know everything going on. But with that being said, let's go ahead and take a look at these articles that have come out in the past week and what's going on in New York to get you caught up on the latest. And let me know, is it time to get out of the state of New York? So link in the description below to this article that came out just a couple days ago that says New York just made it legal to quarantine and isolate citizens indefinitely. Now, what has happened in New York? Well, a New York appellate court has just upheld Governor Kathy Hochul and the state's appeal that the government should have the authority to isolate and or quarantine anyone with a highly contagious disease. Regulation 10 NYCRR 2.13 established isolation and quarantine procedures for people that were suspected of having communicable disease. The original regulation wasn't even during COVID. It was enacted under the state's emergency authorization powers on February 22, 2022. It has been renewed in 90-day intervals, with the state pushing for permanent adoption. A legal challenge ensued with the New York Supreme Justice upholding the plaintiff's argument, saying that it's unconstitutional. At New York Attorney General Letitia James's behalf, the appellate court has now overturned the ruling, and it is downright frightening the consequences that this could have on America's liberty. Now, the state will now be able to instruct the Department of Health to pick and choose which New Yorkers they can lock up or lock down without any proof that they are sick and without any proof that you've been exposed to a communicable disease, according to the attorney Debbie Ann Cox. It gets worse. There is no limit, so they can lock you up or lock you down for days, weeks. There is no location restriction. They can put you in any facility they want. They can either lock you down in their house or they can remove you from their house with the force of police and put you in a facility, detention center that they choose. You would have no say. Oh, and if that wasn't enough, there's no procedure in how you actually get out of the quarantine once you get there, which is why the original New York Justice Plowetz ruled that this involuntary detention is a severe deprivation of individual liberty, far more egregious than any other health and safety measures, and was a violation of the constitutional due process. Instead of fighting for the people, Attorney General Letitia James argued that the plaintiffs lacked standing. Now, if we've learned anything throughout the past couple of years, it's that our elected leaders, government and bureaucratic agencies, and more ignore don't always have our best intentions in their hearts. Never forget what they did to small businesses and how they forced out those that put their lives on the line, such as firefighters and first responders who refused or weren't medically able to receive their medications. President Biden and Mayor Bill de Blasio, Governor Hochul, and others threw them under the bus and took their jobs away. Now, the medical profession is a major PR struggle right now. Many people simply do not trust the doctors as much as they used to, or, the very least, have very little faith in the World Health Organization or the Department of Health. I mean, California is bringing back mask mandates in some areas. The latest New York power grab by Governor Hochul's administration has only put more of your liberty at risk. But don't worry, because if you try to say anything, they might think it's hate speech, which is why they are now openly monitoring New York's social media accounts. And yet, Governor Hochul, Mayor Eric Adams, and other Democratic leaders are shocked that so many New Yorkers, including millionaires and billionaires that help fund the state's tax revenues, are getting out of the state of New York. Hopefully, New Yorkers smarten up and realize what their leaders are doing to them. And as I mentioned, here's another article. Hochul announces a new step to counteract rising online hate speech. New York Governor Kathy Hochul added $3 million to combat anti-Semitism and anti-Islamic hate speech online in the wake of skyrocketing threats on social media since the violence in Israel and the Gaza Strip began on October 7th. Now, the funds, which will be overseen by the state's Division of Homeland Security and distributed to all colleagues and universities in New York, are the latest in a series of actions that the governor has taken to counteract what she says is an over 400% increase in online hate speech against Jewish and Muslim communities. Across our state, New Yorkers are afraid. If they have families or friends in Israel and Gaza and other places, they're afraid for their safety. At home, many people are wrestling with the fear for the first time ever sometimes in their lives of being the victim of a hate crime. I wish I could tell you that these concerns were misplaced, but tragically, the data all across America is showing that the hate crimes have surged in the last 6 weeks. Hochul says that Homeland Security is also developing a media literacy toolkit for the state's primary and secondary schools so that way children can be taught to spot disinformation online. She says they will work with educational leaders to develop an age-appropriate curriculum and to encourage critical thinking about what children might encounter online. She says that the informational guide will also be available to help parents talk to their children about online hate speech. In addition, the governor is writing a letter to the leaders of the major social media companies such as TikTok, Google, and X, Facebook, and Instagram, calling on them to set up their monitoring of content that could incite. She says that she was appalled by recent posts on TikTok that featured a manifesto from the mastermind of the 9/11 attack, the late Osama bin Laden. They say they're monitoring the hate speech, and I have instances where you are not being successful. So ramp up the number of people who are in charge of monitoring, she said. If my state police can find it, if a college student can find it, then clearly the people who have been hired by the company should be able to identify it and take it down immediately. Hochul says the social media companies pledged earlier to step up monitoring on hate speech. The governor admits that she has little control over the companies, but she says that she's considering trying to pressure major companies not to advertise on social media sites that don't take steps to fight hate speech. So there you have it. Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below, especially if you're from the state of New York. And also, they're saying that these could take effect if we are hit with another pandemic, which we've received word that there are a lot of different spreads that are happening right now around the world. Now, to get the latest on those, be sure to check out these videos right here next, as I've just covered them in the past couple of days, as they're saying they're hitting right now. But with that being said, you guys, thank you so much for joining me, and I'll catch you in the next video. Take care. God bless. This is Steve.